In much, much earlier times, when the wolves howled, when the birds could sing and call uninterrupted by noise, in a time where there were no buildings, no highways, no trains, planes, no engines of any kind, our lives were structured on a foundation of natural law which governed all creatures. A law which we Roms called Makeribon. This was all humans ever needed to keep them safe and sound within the framework of that foundation. Now, there is no foundation. Why am I using the two words ritual and ritualizing? When we ritualize something, we are looking at a picture, taking it apart so that we bring it down to the components of what it's all about. We could say that we're looking at some very significant pieces of a necessary jigsaw puzzle about our relationship with life, especially when we're charged with the task of fitting these components or values together as we travel through our lives. These components of this puzzle is what we call Makeribon, the ancient natural code of law governing all life on earth. Every creature or being on earth is subject to this law, which is as old as the earth herself. It is in fact the duty of every human mortal to adhere to this law, understand what it means, and realise that it's a necessary part of life. In an earlier landscape, people were schooled in the codes of law that were required to keep you functioning healthily and normally as an adult, together with the rest of your tribe or community. So if we swap the word component for the word value, we perhaps can fully see what I'm talking about. We find a toolbox for living, one that addresses many aspects of social, emotional and spiritual life. This serves to strengthen bonds, and it also brings out the human animal in us, so that we're not separate from the other beings who live alongside us. We have all of this in our hands to use as best we can if we only look for it. There is in fact no other way to live, for if we don't ritualize in the way I've described, well, we end up with this. And if you are guided by something like Makeribon, then you are never straying away from the foundation. Today we have to create our own foundation because we no longer function according to Makeribon or natural law. Elders no longer pass on the social toolbox we all would have once had to carry us through life. Generations were different in earlier times, with elders passing down to the ones who come after them the way to live according to natural law. So we are forced as individuals, we're all schooled to be individuals, to make up what we believe to be the right thing to do. And quite often we fail miserably at that because we just don't know what the right thing is to do. We don't know how to interact with one another properly. We no longer feel safe and secure in our own shoes. We're not taught to know what it takes to become a normal, healthy adult. I mean, not just physically, psychologically healthy. So when I'm talking about ritualizing, I am stripping down the ideas of the way we interact with one another, the way we function, our behavior, I suppose, and taking those parts and putting them in an order whereby they, I suppose, act out, I suppose become a bit of a drama regarding what we need to do, so that we work hand in hand with each other according to natural law. Now this is this is quite difficult to explain, but I suppose we need an example so that we can explain it. One of the best examples I can think of is in some cultures, and I've done this myself actually, when two people are marrying, they are aware that although they're very much in love, that there could be conflict, there could be rows, there could be all sorts of things taking place that are disagreeable within the family. So at the wedding ceremony, they act out a row with each other. They all go hammer and tongs. The bride and groom do, and all the wedding guests do. Now this is, you could say this is quite fun, but the point of it is that if you strip down the relationships, if you look at them, it's almost like zooming into them, then you can end up ritualizing something that goes wrong. While animals ritualize their fights and very rarely get hurt, they do sometimes, but it's usually only humans who run away with their aggression. A row, an argument, disagreement, people getting het up. We all know what that's like. Every single family in the universe goes through this. But the general idea is that if you strip it down and ritualize it, and even laugh as you're doing it, but if you actually know what you're doing, it can serve to eliminate those aggressive or disagreeable ideas that we might develop with each other, in the hope that we'll realize that we've acted it out so we don't have to do it for real. Ritualizing anything, it doesn't have to be something that expresses conflict, but ritualizing anything at all can serve to act out something that could become a problem, but by acting it out, it doesn't need to become a problem. Over many years, I used role play to ritualize the problems some people were experiencing in their lives. Ritualizing a problem helped people to understand and even laugh at a problem. In many cultures that ritualize rites of passage, now I say ritualize again, they perform a ritual to ritualize what can happen. You may be aware of the ritual that is acted out, and I can't remember what the tribe are called, where the boys who are growing into men at puberty, they have to wear a glove and it has deadly ants. There's something that stings really, really badly, and they have to wear this glove, and the stinging ants go to work. And this is deliberately done in this way so that you will be acting out what happens when hurt, pain and fear strike you as an adult. Now you might say, well, that's very cruel. In another sense, how would we ever learn to have courage for some of the things we need to face in life if we didn't ritualize what these difficult times were all about? It's like a rehearsal, because the rehearsal helps us to understand that this is going to happen. We all meet conflict, we all meet tragedy, we all meet crises that come upon us sometimes out of the blue. What do we do about it? How do we meet it? If we haven't ritualized that it could happen, that it exists, how are we going to get through it? So that's what I mean by ritualizing. I mean standing yourself in good stead. It's like being prepared for anything at all. Should it happen, you'll be ready, and you know that at some point it will happen. Now, moving a step on from this, ritualising rites of passage, there's rituals for births, marriages, deaths and everything else. How they did it all in earlier times and how different cultures do it is a vast area. One ritual the Romans used to perform, which you might know about, is when somebody died, they would set fire to the wagons. And that is because there is a need to get rid of all the personal objects so that the person is able to move on. And the actual ritual that is performed, now this is different to ritualising. If you've gone through a rite of passage at puberty, then it's in your makeup to know that conflict and difficulties, death, grief is all going to happen. Then when you get to actually performing a ritual, you're going to go through it and know exactly what it's all about. So there is a bit of a difference between ritual and ritualising. And because we've lost both those things, I do not know how we can ever replace them, because we can't. We've got religious ritual, we've got all sorts of rituals that we might perform, but we can never bring those back where we helped ourselves by ritualising something and helping ourselves to understand what exactly life is all about. So when we are equipping ourselves for life, in whatever way we do it, it's a good thing. It's a really good thing. The rituals we might practice in modern times, we end up not ritualising. If we haven't ritualised, then we can't really practice a ritual. If we don't understand the principles of the makeup of the human being and what the human being has to do to live with things like conflict, social problems, personal problems, all those things that we meet, if we haven't ritualised, then we're going to have to, I'm afraid, do the best we can. So when we perform a New Age ritual, it's rather like trying to bake something without your main ingredients. Imagine baking a cake without using flour and eggs or sugar or whatever you're going to use to make the cake. Are we not without a foundation when we are performing a ritual without having first ritualised that particular situation? We've so far talked about ritualising life, all the complexities that we encounter, as drawn from ancient tribal folk who understood the principles of life according to natural law. Small personal rituals, which I would see more as customs, could help us reconnect with the natural world. We can light a candle for an ancestor. The flame, which is as old as anything, can help to reunite us with them. We can watch the sun rise or watch the sun set and also reconnect with ancestors. Then what we need to do is keep it simple, keep it light-hearted. All this drama and all this, we are performing a ritual, that that doesn't sit so well with someone like me, who has never, ever, honestly, witnessed anything like that in my own culture. You probably, hopefully, get the gist if I've explained it well enough, because otherwise I'm just a lone voice talking about all these things. So check back for more. Thanks for listening.